Imagine wandering through a cemetery where the past whispers secrets buried beneath the tombstones. I'm Henry Moore, the town's gravedigger, and I've always found peace among the serene resting places of Willow Creek Cemetery. But what happens when that peace shatters? Today, I'll take you deep into a chilling mystery, the haunting story of Emily Carter, a vibrant young woman whose life was stolen, buried alive, and left shrouded in secrets. Have you ever felt the icy grip of the unknown, or wondered what truly lies beneath the surface of a seemingly quiet town? As we uncover the truth together, prepare yourself for the unsettling revelation of betrayal and vengeance that could change everything you thought you knew. Stay with me as we delve into a tale that transcends the grave, because in this world, the dead have stories to tell, and some of them are begging to be heard. I had always found solace among the serene tombstones of Willow Creek Cemetery. My name is Henry Moore, and I am the town's gravedigger, a title that has, over the years, morphed into a sort of haunting reputation. Most folks in our small American town preferred to keep their distance from me, whispering about my peculiar habits and my solitary existence. They said I was strange, perhaps even cursed, but I never paid much attention. My companionship was with the earth, the dead, and the stories buried along with them. As I knelt before a fresh grave, carefully placing the soil back into the earth, I spoke softly to myself. Another day, another soul to rest. My voice echoed softly in the stillness of the cemetery, the only witness to my ritual. I enjoyed these moments of quiet reflection, where I could ponder the lives of those who had come before me, their laughter and sorrow now part of the soil beneath my hands. "What tales do you have, dear friend?" I asked, brushing the dirt from my hands. I imagined the stories, loves lost, dreams unfulfilled, all wrapped tightly in the silence of the grave. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, I felt an unsettling chill creep through the air. I glanced around, noticing the shadows lengthening, stretching toward me, as if they were trying to escape the darkness. "It's just the wind," I muttered, trying to shake off the unease that settled in my bones. Still, something seemed off. I couldn't help but recall the hushed tones of the townsfolk, especially the recent gossip surrounding Emily Carter, a young woman whose vibrant spirit had been snuffed out far too soon. Once I finished my work, I made my way home, taking the usual path along the cobblestone streets. As I walked, I overheard snippets of conversation from a group gathered outside the general store. "Did you hear about Emily?" one woman exclaimed. "They say she was wrapped up in some kind of love triangle, poor thing." "Love triangle or not, she didn't deserve what happened to her," another voice chimed in, dripping with disdain. "I heard they found her body, just like that, buried in the ground. Can you believe it?" My heart raced at the mention of Emily's name. I had dug her grave only a week prior, and the unease that had settled in my mind grew heavier. I paused, my curiosity piqued, as I edged closer to the group. "What do you mean, just like that?" I asked, unable to contain myself. They turned, surprised to see me looming there, my gray work shirt dusted with remnants of the day's labor. "Oh, Henry?" one of the women said, her voice laced with pity. "We were just discussing Emily. She was in a love affair with that Jacob boy. He was jealous, they say, and now she's gone." "Gone?" I echoed, my throat dry. "What do you know about it?" "She was found in her coffin, Henry. They say she was buried alive. Can you imagine?" The woman shivered dramatically, and the others murmured in agreement, their eyes wide with horror. I felt a shiver run down my spine. The thought of someone being buried alive, their cries for help swallowed by the earth, gnawed at my insides. I turned away, the weight of their words pressing heavily upon me as I made my way home, the shadows growing longer around me. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to me like a second skin. A storm rolled in, wind howling through the trees, and I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the images of Emily's final moments haunting me. I closed my eyes, trying to find some semblance of peace, but the sounds from outside grew louder, rustling, whispering, a cacophony of voices that seemed to seep into my mind. When dawn broke, I rushed back to the cemetery, my heart pounding in anticipation. As I approached Emily's grave, I felt an icy grip on my heart. To my horror, I saw her coffin slightly ajar, the earth around it disturbed as if something had clawed its way to the surface. "No," "This can't be," I whispered, dread pooling in my stomach. I knelt beside the grave, my hands trembling as I brushed the dirt away, revealing the dark wood of the coffin. "What happened here?" I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. I had to uncover the truth, whatever it may be. The cemetery, once a place of solace, now felt like a portal to a mystery I was destined to unravel. A mystery that involved the restless spirit of a young woman whose final chapter had not yet been written. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness as I stood at the entrance of the cemetery, lantern in hand, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and shadows danced among the tombstones, beckoning me to step further into the darkness. I had never been one to shy away from my responsibilities as the town's gravedigger, but tonight felt different. Tonight I was not just Henry Moore, the solitary caretaker of this hallowed ground. I was a man on the brink of uncovering a mystery that had haunted me since I first laid eyes on Emily Carter's grave. "Just a few hours, Henry," I whispered to myself, trying to muster the courage that seemed to wane with each passing minute. "You can do this." I took a deep breath, the scent of damp earth filling my lungs, and walked towards Emily's final resting place. The sight of her coffin, slightly ajar, still sent shivers down my spine. I knelt beside it, my lantern casting flickering shadows that morphed into grotesque shapes on the ground. As darkness enveloped the cemetery, I began to hear it, the faint whispering of voices carried by the wind. They echoed around me, rising and falling like the tide, and I strained to make out the words. "Help us. Help her." I shook my head, trying to dismiss the creeping dread that clung to me. "It's just the wind," I muttered, though deep down I felt a chill race up my spine. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The only response was the rustling of leaves in the trees overhead, and I cursed myself for being so easily frightened. I couldn't let my imagination get the best of me. Not tonight. I had a job to do. I had to understand what was happening to Emily. Then, just as I was about to stand up, a chilling mist began to roll over the grave. It crept slowly, swirling around the earth like a living thing, and I felt a wave of icy air wash over me. My breath hitched, and my heart raced as I squinted into the fog, straining to see what lay within. Suddenly, the mist thickened, and I could make out a figure rising from the coffin, an ethereal silhouette that sent my pulse racing. "Emily?" The name slipped from my lips as I took a hesitant step back. The figure materialized before me, translucent and glowing with an otherworldly light. Her hair flowed around her like tendrils of smoke, and her eyes, oh, those eyes, were filled with a sorrow so profound it pierced through the veil of death. I felt the weight of her gaze, heavy with unspoken words and unfulfilled promises. "Why have you come?" Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, yet it echoed in the stillness like a tolling bell. "Why do you disturb my rest?" I came to find the truth about your death," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to know what happened to you, Emily. Why were you buried alive?" A flicker of pain crossed her face, and for a moment I saw the girl she once was, a vibrant spirit full of life, laughter, and dreams. "Betrayed," she breathed, her voice trembling like the leaves on the trees. "Those I trusted turned against me. They silenced me to hide their shame." "Who?" I pressed, feeling an urgency rise within me. "Who did this to you?" "The truth lies in the darkness of this town," she replied, her form beginning to shimmer as if caught between worlds. "To free my spirit, you must unearth the secrets buried alongside me." The weight of her words settled heavily on my shoulders. I realized then that I was no longer just an observer in this tragic tale. I was a part of it. The responsibility of her vengeance now lay in my hands, and with it, the burden of uncovering the truth. "Emily, I promise I will help you," I vowed, determination flooding my veins. "I will reveal the betrayal, and I will set you free." With that, she smiled, a fleeting glimpse of hope amidst her sorrow, and I felt a spark ignite within me. The night may have been dark, but I was ready to face whatever shadows awaited, armed with nothing but my resolve and the flickering light of my lantern. I stood there, the cold night air swirling around me, as Emily's ghostly figure hovered before me, her translucent form glowing faintly in the moonlight. My heart raced, pounding like a drum against my ribs. "You were buried alive," I whispered in disbelief, struggling to process the horror of her words. "Yes," she replied, her voice a soft, haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. They betrayed me, Henry. Those I trusted the most. I was alive when they put me in that coffin. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and life, now burned with a fierce, unyielding rage. I need your help to reveal the truth. What can I do? I stammered, my mind racing. I had spent countless nights alone in this cemetery, but never had I imagined I would be speaking to a spirit who had suffered so profoundly. Who did this to you? She pointed toward the old, crumbling stones of the cemetery, her ethereal finger quivering as it gestured to the shadows where the town lay beyond. It was jealousy, Henry. Jacob. He was supposed to love me, but his heart was twisted with envy. He wanted to keep me for himself, and when I sought freedom, Her voice cracked, and my stomach churned at the thought of her suffering. Jacob? I repeated, the name leaving a bitter taste on my tongue. The townsfolk had always spoken of him with respect, a man of stature in our community. But what if the rumors hidden beneath the surface were more than just whispers? What if he had played a part in this treachery? Find him, she urged, her eyes piercing through the darkness. He still walks among you. He must pay for what he's done. Only then can I be free. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly as I felt a sense of responsibility wash over me. I'll help you, Emily. I promise. Thank you, she whispered, her form beginning to fade, the mist around her thickening like smoke. But be careful. The truth is buried deep, and those who know it will do anything to keep it hidden. As the last remnants of her presence dissolved into the night, I stood frozen, grappling with the enormity of my task. I had always been an observer in this town, the gravedigger who kept to himself. But now I felt the weight of Emily's spirit resting heavily on my shoulders, pushing me to confront the very fabric of our community. With a newfound determination, I turned away from her grave and began to walk toward the town. The moon hung high above, casting an eerie glow on the cobblestone streets. I could see Jacob's house in the distance, a grand structure that stood in stark contrast to the other modest homes surrounding it. The sight of it filled me with dread. Henry, is that you? A voice called out from behind me. I spun around to see Mrs. Henderson, an elderly woman from the neighborhood, shuffling toward me. Her eyes widened as she noticed my pallid face. You look as if you've seen a ghost. Just a long night at work, I replied, forcing a smile. Have you heard anything about Emily Carter? Her expression darkened. Poor girl, such a tragedy. But I wouldn't dwell on it, dear. Some things are better left buried. I felt a chill creep down my spine. Why do you say that? Because, Henry, she whispered, leaning in closer, the past has a way of haunting those who dare to dig it up. With that unsettling warning, she shuffled away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I knew I had to confront Jacob. I had to uncover the truth not only for Emily, but for myself. As I approached Jacob's house, my heart pounded louder with each step. I could hear laughter and music spilling out from within, a stark contrast to the grim reality I had just witnessed. I hesitated at the door, the weight of Emily's plea echoing in my mind. I knocked, my hand trembling slightly. The door swung open, and there stood Jacob, his handsome face framed by the warm glow of the lights inside. Henry, what brings you here? He asked, feigning surprise. Can we talk? I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I needed to tread carefully. I had no idea how deep Jacob's involvement ran, or how far he would go to protect his secrets. Of course, he said, stepping aside. As I entered, I could feel the oppressive weight of the past looming over us both. The time for truth had come. As I left the town square, the sun began its slow descent behind the hills, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward me, beckoning me back to the cemetery. With each step, I could feel the weight of Emily's ghostly presence pressing down on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. My heart raced with a mix of trepidation and determination. I had to confront Jacob, the man whose jealousy might have sealed Emily's fate. The front porch of Jacob's modest home was illuminated by the warm glow of a single lamp, but the light did little to ease the chill that wrapped around me as I approached. I knocked, my knuckles rapping against the old wood, and waited. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing Jacob, his face a mask of surprise that quickly morphed into a cautious smile. Henry Moore, he said, his voice betraying a hint of nervousness. What brings you here? Can we talk? I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my stomach. It's about Emily. His demeanor shifted instantly. Emily? What about her? I know you were close to her. I need to understand what happened the night she disappeared. Jacob's eyes darted around as if searching for an escape. That was a long time ago, Henry. Best to let the past stay buried. Buried? I echoed, feeling the fire of indignation rise within me. She wasn't buried. She was alive when they put her in that coffin. I saw her, Jacob. Her spirit is restless and she needs justice. Jacob's face paled, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of fear cross his features before he masked it with bravado. You're talking nonsense. Emily was troubled, and her life was a mess. She made her choices. Choices? You mean the choices made for her by people who claim to love her? I pressed, my fists clenching at my sides. I know you were jealous of her relationship with someone else. Did that jealousy drive you to betray her? I had nothing to do with her death. Jacob snapped, his voice rising. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then help me understand. You're the last person who saw her. What happened that night? I stepped closer, my gaze locked onto his, hoping to pierce through the layers of deceit. He took a step back, shaking his head. I don't owe you any explanations, Henry. You're just a gravedigger. You wouldn't understand. I may dig graves, but I also unearth truths. I turned to leave, anger boiling inside me. You can hide all you want, but I will find the truth for Emily. As I trudged back to the cemetery, my mind raced with the confrontation. Jacob's defensiveness only fueled my determination, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay on a cold bench among the gravestones, the stars twinkling above like distant eyes watching me. Then, in the stillness of the night, I felt her presence again. Emily appeared before me, her ethereal form glowing softly, her eyes filled with urgency. Henry, she whispered, her voice echoing like a breeze through the trees. You must dig deeper. The truth lies beneath the surface. Tell me what to do, I urged, hanging on to every word. I'll find it. Follow the shadows of those who wronged me, she instructed, her voice growing fainter. The nights will reveal secrets. Trust your instincts. I awoke with a start, the dawn light filtering through the trees. Emily's words echoed in my mind, urging me to take action. That day, I felt a powerful pull towards a particular plot nearby, a grave that had long been forgotten. Armed with my shovel, I approached it, the earth beneath my feet calling out to be disturbed. With each stroke of the shovel, I felt an energy coursing through me, a connection to something larger than myself. As I dug deeper, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of uncovering a hidden truth. The air was thick with anticipation, and I found myself whispering to Emily, I will find what you need. I promise. The sun climbed higher, and sweat trickled down my brow as I unearthed the grave. The ground felt different here, softer, almost alive. I hit something solid, and my heart raced. Was it merely a coffin, or something more? I paused, my breath hitching in my throat, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. What dark secrets would I uncover? Would they finally free Emily's spirit? As I dug into the earth, the cool night air wrapped around me like a shroud, my heart pounding with each shovelful of dirt I tossed aside. The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow over the cemetery, illuminating the weathered tombstones that surrounded me. My thoughts raced back to the ghostly figure of Emily Carter, her sorrowful eyes burning into my memory. I knew I had to uncover the truth of her death, and now it seemed I had stumbled upon something more, a hidden past buried alongside her. Come on, Henry, I muttered to myself, wiping the sweat from my brow. What secrets are you hiding? The air felt thick with anticipation, almost as if the very ground beneath me was alive. I dug deeper, the shovel scraping against something hard. My breath hitched, I paused, my heart racing. Was it another coffin? Or perhaps something even more sinister? With trembling hands, I cleared the dirt away, revealing the aged wood of a casket, smaller than Emily's but just as mysterious. The hinges creaked as I pried it open, revealing the remains of a woman, her features obscured by time. As I leaned closer, my eyes caught a glimmer of something metallic around her neck, a locket. I carefully unclasped it, my fingers trembling, and opened it to reveal a photograph of Emily and this unknown woman together, their smiles frozen in time. What the hell? I whispered, the realization crashing over me like a wave. This woman had to be connected to Emily's story. I needed to know who she was and how she was tied to the betrayal that had led to Emily's tragic fate. Just then, a rustle in the bushes startled me, and I spun around, clutching the locket tightly in my palm. My pulse quickened as I squinted into the shadows. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. A figure stepped into the moonlight, and I recognized Sarah, the town historian. "Henry?" she asked, her eyes wide, glancing nervously at the open grave. "What are you doing out here?" "I found something," I replied, my voice low and urgent. I held up the locket, the photo gleaming in the pale light. "This woman, she's connected to Emily. I need your help to figure this out." Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to intrigue as she approached. "Let me see." She took the locket from my hands, her brow furrowing as she studied it. This is Margaret. She was a local girl, but her story was lost to time. They said she died under mysterious circumstances. "Do you think her death is linked to Emily's?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. She nodded slowly. "It's possible. There have always been whispers about the families in this town, powerful families who would do anything to protect their reputations. Betrayal runs deep here, Henry." "Then we need to dig deeper," I said, determination flooding my veins. "We need to find out what really happened to both of them." Sarah looked conflicted, her eyes darting between the grave and my face. "You know, Henry, the town has a history of cover-ups. The more you uncover, the more dangerous it becomes. Are you sure you want to pursue this?" I met her gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I have to. Emily deserves justice, and so does Margaret. They both deserve their stories to be told." With a sigh, Sarah nodded. "All right, I'll help you. There are records in the library that might shed light on Margaret's life and her connection to Emily. But we need to be careful." "Let's go, then," I urged, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The secrets of the past were beginning to unravel, and I was ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. As we made our way out of the cemetery, the weight of the locket in my pocket felt like a promise. The truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered, and I wouldn't stop until I had freed the restless spirits bound by betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. Sarah and I had spent the last few hours sifting through dusty boxes in the town's historical society, poring over old letters and town records. My heart raced when Sarah pulled out a worn leather journal, its cover cracked and faded. "This might be it, Henry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she carefully opened the journal. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink barely legible in places, but I leaned in closer, eager to uncover Emily's truth. "Let's see what secrets you hold," I murmured, my fingers grazing the fragile pages. As Sarah began to read aloud, the words transported me into Emily's world, a world of love, betrayal, and anguish. "I can't believe they would do this to me," Sarah read, her voice trembling. "I thought Jacob loved me. I thought he would protect me from their cruelty." My heart sank. The very man I had confronted was at the center of her turmoil. "She was so young, so innocent," I said, almost to myself. "How could they have done this?" Sarah continued to read, her brow furrowing as Emily described the events leading to her burial. "They said I was mad, that I had to be silenced. But I knew the truth. They were the ones who betrayed me." Each line felt like a dagger to my heart, piercing through the fog of suspicion that had clouded my mind. I looked at Sarah, who sat pale and still, the weight of the revelations settling heavily upon us. "We have to confront Jacob," I insisted, a newfound determination surging through me. "He has to answer for what he did." I could see the conflict in her eyes, a mix of fear and hesitation. "Henry, wait," she said, her voice almost breaking. "I have to tell you something." My heart raced. I could sense her unease. "My family, they were part of this. My great-grandfather was one of the ones who helped make it look like she died of natural causes." The words hung in the air, thick with tension. I felt as though the ground had shifted beneath my feet. "You knew?" I snapped, anger bubbling to the surface. "You knew and didn't say anything?" "I didn't know everything until now," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes wide with desperation. I didn't want to believe it. But once we started digging, I had to confront the truth. My family's past is stained, Henry. I never imagined it would lead to this. "Your family?" I shook my head. disbelief washing over me. You're just as complicit as they are. In that moment of heated accusation, the room chilled. A sudden draft snuffed out the flickering candlelight, plunging us into darkness. Panic surged within me, but then I heard it, the familiar, sorrowful whisper of Emily's spirit. "Henry." I turned, and there she was, her ethereal figure hovering just beyond the journal, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and fury. "Please, do not turn against her," she implored, her voice echoing through the shadows. "Sarah is not your enemy. She is a key to your salvation." "Emily, I began, but she raised a translucent hand to silence me. "Listen to me, Henry. My story must be told, and Sarah is bound to this truth as much as I am. Her ancestor orchestrated my betrayal, but Sarah has the strength to confront that dark legacy. Together, you can bring justice to those who wronged me." I felt a surge of emotion, the weight of my anger beginning to lift. But how can I trust her? How can I trust you? "Trust is built through understanding," Emily replied softly, her gaze piercing through my defenses. "Help Sarah uncover the truth, and in doing so, you will free my soul and hers from this curse." As I looked at Sarah, tears glistening in her eyes, I realized that our fates were intertwined. The anger that had threatened to consume me began to dissipate, replaced by a shared purpose. "All right," I said, my voice steadier now. "We'll do this together. We'll confront Jacob and expose the truth." "Thank you," Sarah breathed, a flicker of hope igniting within her, "for believing in me." With Emily's spirit guiding us, we stepped into the unknown, ready to unearth the buried secrets that had haunted our town for far too long. The night was dark, but together we would shine a light on the past, revealing the truth that had been hidden away for too long.